Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's the Hook Better Leads podcast. We're extremely excited to be on with you. And we have Rob Ambrosetti here, the training director at KGG Consulting. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing well, Tim. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. And we're talking about training and educating your salespeople about pre-calls, add-ons, and follow-ups. And Rob specializes in the HVAC industry. He talks to a lot of companies. He's seeing what they're doing well. And I also think some of these lessons apply to other home services companies for sure. Let's start with the first one, pre-sale or pre-calls. Why does that matter? What do you mean when you say pre-calls?
It can mean a few different things, but how I would say this, it sets the tone for the rest of the relationship, really. So maybe it's an existing customer you've already had a relationship with, but I think in terms of maybe it's someone new that's calling you. And no matter what your field or trade is, I think it's important just to take a step back and look at what your message is, how you want to be perceived by your customers. And honestly, this day and age, I think the new buzzword is create customer experience, right? So it all starts with that first phone call. And my background, heating and air conditioning, and also being an educator, it's kind of both worlds kind of come together in my mind in that, first and foremost, your staff, all the way from the person that answers the phone all the way to the technician or somebody that might actually be entering the home should all be on the same page, almost have the same level of understanding and knowledge as to what it is your business does, how you want to present yourself. So I would say Mrs. Davis calls and needs her furnace fixed. So Mrs. Davis, we're happy to help you here. We're happy to help you with this call. Tim's coming out he'll be able to come out to the house, what's good for you, that kind of thing. But the conversation will be, hey, while Tim is there, we also do indoor air quality tests. Have you been concerned about the air you've been breathing lately? Or whatever your trade might be, whatever, find that, try to be different, right?
Yeah.
This year has all been about changing the narrative, right? After what we have lived through.
Yeah.
You're making yourself unique, Tim, right? In the fact that with podcasts and the advent of podcast here, you try to be just a little bit different. And I would say just set the tone. Pre-call is setting the tone, setting the stage for how you want that customer relationship to play out.
And it's also, like you've got a little upsell queued up and something that would potentially make their life better. And really what we're talking about here, the why here is we're trying to increase the customer lifetime value. That's something a lot of us have an opportunity to do. In your case, you've seen a lot of companies that all they're doing is maybe selling the basics and they're not doing the rounding out of the system. How do we increase that customer lifetime value?
So again, I'll relate it to heating and air conditioning. Most guys are used to and very good at selling boxes, right? So furnaces and air conditioners. And I'll take that all the way up through the food chain. Anybody in HVAC, whether you're a contractor, distributor, or manufacturer, it's all about, boxes. Well, there's so much more to this. I don't think people think of heating and air conditioning guy as also being the indoor air quality expert. Again, I'll just take a step back here and say, from a training standpoint, you are the experts, right? Become the best experts you can possibly be. That way you're ready to share and teach, because literally you think about it, you're in the home, you're actually educating the homeowner. So you want to take that, what you know, and impart that knowledge to the homeowner. And like you just said a minute ago, we're so used to selling boxes. Well, if I'm a contractor, an HVAC contractor, and I'm already in the home and I'm there to quote a system replacement, the term add-ons and term upselling, I think, has a negative connotation to it. So I would always say if I were going to change the narrative in our industry right now, it would be enhancements, right? What kind of enhancements can we offer?
Yeah.
And on every quote, I would say, you have a menu, and I'll call this the car wash model. You probably don't have Delta Sonics in your area, but there's car wash change probably in your area, right? What happens when you pull up to the car wash booth and pay for your car wash? There's the $10 car wash, the $15 car wash, and the $20 car wash. What do they start asking you? Would you like tire dressing? Would you like the windshield treatment? So you get a menu of options. And I would say there's nothing wrong with having a menu of options.
Yeah.
And nobody likes to be sold on, right? And I think that's the other thing that's wrong in a lot of industries.
No one really likes to sell that much either. It's not a fun feeling if you're thinking about it as upsells, but it is if you're thinking about how can I help this person? How can I make their home perform well in the best way possible and make it comfortable for them?
I think all of us can admit we know when we're being sold. And I think all of us would probably admit we don't really like that feeling. When you're being sold something, there's a pitch, right? We all have a pitch. I'll turn you on to a guy. There's a book out there for anybody who wants to read it to kind of change this narrative as well. Stephen Yastrow, ditch the pitch. It's
Okay.
great. It's about conversational, not even going to say selling, but having that conversation, asking questions, and more importantly, listening to the answers with your clients, right? Listen to them intently and figure out, try to unlock that puzzle, how you can best help them with the knowledge that you have.
I
Go
want to
ahead.
throw something out here just kind of as an example to frame this a little bit better too, because some of the people that are going to be listening to this podcast, let's say if we're talking directly to an HVAC company owner or a marketing manager or a sales director or something like that, right? Let's say we're talking to them, and I talked to my hairdresser. I'm trying to learn about plumbing too as an industry, and I'm like, her husband is a plumber, and so I'm just like asking questions. I'm digging in. I'm curious, and she was talking about how her husband's company is essentially like trying to get just like what we're talking about here, the customer lifetime value up. And I know what it is, but she's talking about it in a negative connotation, like he doesn't want to try to make every house call $900, right? Like sometimes it's a $300 thing, and that's okay. And it feels like they're pressuring him to do upsells. And like, it's the conversation. You're right. The framing really does matter. It might not matter all the time to us as like, let's say people in, if you're in the office setting, it doesn't matter as much. But when you're out there on the job and you're talking to the homeowner, you're having these conversations directly, it feels gross. So like, how do we change the tone?
Exactly. So I think in our own minds, we have to change that thinking too, that we're selling something that somebody doesn't need. And that's just, I don't think any of us want to do that, right?
Maybe sometimes that is their problem. I mean, maybe that is the mindset of that culture, and you kind of got to shift it. And what else could they really use? What would make their life better?
I think it's a puzzle, and you unlock the puzzle through conversation, right? It's about asking the right questions and, more importantly, listening. So if I walk in the house and there's kids, or they might have a portable air cleaner over in the corner room over there, I might, hey, I noticed you have that over there. Can you tell me about why you have that? Do you like it? And in my world, I would easily lend into that conversation or roll into, how would you like a whole home solution versus a room only solution, right? And I don't think that's just asking a question.
Yep.
And I think it's, you're offering your knowledge and your services, if you could think of it in that terms.
Yeah.
I think you would be mad at me if I came to your house and just fixed the problem and didn't say anything about what I saw, mold growing over in the corner, right? And or that I have this great air purifier, that you talk to your neighbor the next day or the next week and you find out, oh yeah, Rob offered blah 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 to me, and you say, well, geez, he didn't offer me that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's, don't be afraid to share your knowledge and information first and foremost. It's not, don't think of it in terms of selling, but helping, offering, and sharing your knowledge. Not everybody can afford all the solutions anyway.
Yeah.
And I would say, don't let that inhibit you either. Because in your mind as a salesperson, you might say, he can't afford that. Why would I even talk about it? Don't do that, because there's financing, there's ways. Somebody truly needs the help. You're the person to help them. And like I said, that sets up the tone. That pre-call sets up the tone. You make it a flow, right? Your last guest, I really got a kick out of, was Roger Wakefield, right?
Yeah.
What he said, take a step back and find out what pains your customer. Well, if you and I sat here today and said, I got to call a contractor up, he's coming to my house. The worst thing in the world as a homeowner is not knowing when he's coming, right? Or say they'll be there towards the end of the night and you don't hear anything. It's communication, right? There's so many tools this day and age that can set the tone. Like, okay, here's another great example. The guy that kills my spiders, right? The bug guy that comes once a year, because they give me a window of time, a couple hours, but then guess what? When he's on his way, I get a text. My electrician, I made an appointment. I needed some under counter lighting put in. They send me a picture the night before with a picture of the technician that's coming, saying, hey, here's Joe blah, blah, blah is coming. This is his background. He'll be doing this. And while he's there, let him know, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. And then next morning, hey, Joe's on his way. There's tools out there.
Is that Pulse M that might have sent that?
There's a couple of them out there.
There's a really cool one I like that I've seen, that like Pulse M is something that does that. I love that tool. I don't have any relationship with them whatsoever, but I've seen it in action, and it is super comforting if you're a homeowner. Like if you just see who's coming and just like when they're like in the text follow-up, that's how people communicate these days, text. So
I mean, how painful is it not knowing? All the contractors that I've had over the years, and I've known them well too, guys that I know, it's like, that's just like pulling teeth to get somebody to the house, or they say they're going to, that's a pain. Let's solve that pain with that particular solution, right? So again, communication's everything. Don't think in terms of upselling, think in terms of offering on every job, what your service, what your field might be, change your narrative, be a little different, differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you're differentiating
Humanity.
yourself, which is great. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it's all about.
Humanity is an easy way to differentiate yourself. Like, and I'd love to hear your take on this. Like, as a HVAC company, do you make your reps act formal, or what is the balance of like tone when you're in home with people? Because certainly some people kind of prefer a little bit more of a standoffish, just like I'm a technician, get in and do my work and get out. And then other people like that warmth. And frankly, some of them might want to waste your reps time or what, like spend time with people. So what is the tone there?
That's an excellent question. And what I found in traveling all over the country, it depends on where you live. And I know people get mad at me, but up in the Northeast, it's a little more abrupt, a little more straight, cut and dry answers. And, and then down South, it's a slower process. And I'm not saying people are slower. It's just the pace is a little different and you adjust your style. If I'm a Northerner and I move to the South, I'm probably going to have to adjust my pace. And I've heard of plenty of salesmen relocating and they take their style from where it was that they lived and they moved into this new location. It's all about where you live. It's geographical. That's an excellent question though. So I think it all depends. And, every homeowner is different too, right? Every house, every person is different. And like you said,
catch a vibe from them and understand, like,
exactly.
Being understanding of what they're preferring at that moment. And some people, like, honestly, and you got to figure out how to scale this up to your team, because the people listening to this podcast might not be the ones actually in the home that much. You got to figure out how to scale it out to your team of like, understand, like just social awareness. How do you get social awareness around? You don't want to be wasting their time, especially now while there's people working from home and things like that. You really have to catch what their vibe is.
There's a lot of improv that goes on, right? We could be comedians. If we were funny or had a sense of humor, I mean, we have to improvise quite a bit. And that's honestly, that's a skill. If you want to work on something, like you and I, we don't have a script today. We're two guys talking, having a conversation. You learn to improvise. So you go in a house, one homeowner might not be as social. Somebody could be very outgoing. You learn to improvise, and it varies from home to home and region to region, really.
So you kind of mentioned, so we talked about pre-calls. We're talking about not add-ons or upsells, but what is the way you're framing it again? I like the way you frame
enhancements.
Enhancements. So let's talk about the enhancements we talked about air filter, dehumidifier, and maintenance agreements as three things to think about if you aren't currently doing that. What would you say the percentage of HVAC companies that are doing this well are? Like, who's doing this well?
It's hard to put a number on it. I would say it's less than half. It's less than half. I'll put it that way.
And maybe some of them have the intention to do this, but just aren't doing it consistently.
Right. There's some companies that really get it. They understand it. They promote it. So here's what I'll just share with you. The successful companies that I see, again, it starts with training their staff, being the expert, right? First and foremost, be the expert, be the best expert you can be around whatever trade you're in. Okay. From there, how do I communicate what I know? Forward communication. Some companies might actually have checkoff lists. Some companies have formal quotes. Some companies write on a piece of paper, right? I would say you want to look professional. So be as professional as you can be. When you talk about these enhancements and offering the enhancements, you have to get in a habit. And I know you like the word habit, right? Good habits.
Yes, I like habits.
So good habits would be, in the case of like indoor air quality, offer those accessories every time. Test, like when you go to a doctor's office, no matter what you go into the doctor's office for, there's certain things that they do no matter what it is, right? They're going to take your temperature, weight, height, blood pressure, right? No matter what you're there for. Same thing with technicians in your field. You're going to have certain data points when you show up. Again, whatever your trade might be. In heating and air conditioning, it's a little more technical. We look for obviously temperature, humidity. When we're talking indoor air quality, you want to get into that ball game and help yourself out. You might have an air monitor you want to put in. You're going to measure particulates, volatile organic compounds, things that are in the air that we all experience every day without even realizing it, right? And then from there, you have to gain trust with the customer. Hey, this is what we normally do. And again, pre-call, let them know you're going to be taking, if you're okay with it, we're going to take an air sample. This is just one example, right? You go there and again, hey, this is what we found. And, okay, so you take your findings. Next step is clear communication of what you found. You're not going to tell somebody, hey, your humidity is really low. You really need a humidifier. Don't tell anybody they need something, right? First of all, in the call or in the process, you're going to say, hey, you could really benefit from, raising your humidity levels. And this is why, germs thrive in dry air. Your body's ability to fight off those germs decreases. So you could really benefit from decreasing the humidity. So that right then and there, I just explained or gave value to the homeowner
Mm-hmm.
of why they should have this.
And they might be asking at that point, okay, how
I
can
would
I do,
hope.
how?
I would hope, right?
Yep.
So, so first of all, don't inhibit yourselves from offering your solutions, because that's what they are. They're solutions. And again, you would be mad at me if I found out my neighbor was offered those and I wasn't. I'd feel a little bit put off, right? So
Yeah,
just
and
do
I
it.
liked what you said about not judging somebody and being like, oh, they can't afford this, or that's a really bad. I've done it before, like with our services, right? And how does that feel as a homeowner? Like, and if even in just for smaller things, like if you wanted to have them on a maintenance agreement or something like that, like that's maybe they're not going to do this giant replacement or whatever, but you're kind of giving people, you're putting off the wrong vibe and all those. And I think like making sure that you just expectedly and positively offer what's possible.
Just pretend you're making friends, right?
Yeah.
Conversation, be professional, share what you know, and that's all you're doing. You're not, so then the selling kind of comes out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the more you can educate your clients and they understand why it is you're talking about your content, the more people can understand you and what you have to offer, the more likely they are to buy from you. You've just done them a service, you've helped them out, you share, and they're more able to, by understanding, they're probably going to buy some of those enhancements. So a
Yeah.
humidifier, a better air filter. Maintenance agreements are kind of a little bit separate because you brought that up. I would say
Yeah.
maintenance agreements help. Our industry tends to have peaks and valleys, with the climate
Yeah.
change, right? So
Okay.
there's months where the extreme cold heating season, we're going full bore. Summer cooling season, we're going full bore. But then those tweener seasons, maintenance agreements typically help contractors balance them out. So we're going to be in the home.
Mm-hmm.
It's more contact to further that relationship. You're going to be, if you can get somebody to come out to the house, twice a year or 4 times a year, whatever you think is best for that
Mm-hmm.
particular homeowner, it's more touches, right? It's
And could you
more
say
you
that, like,
sharing that experience with them.
I love that. And you could probably like if you're doing it 2 times a year, kind of on a schedule or like in a season, you could do it in your off season, you're saying.
So question for
Off
you,
seasons.
if
Yeah.
I have a roofing contractor re-roof a part of my house, is there
Yeah.
things that roofing contractors could offer, an inspection in a couple of years or
Yeah.
after 1 year as a service? Hey, because caulk and sealants change, they dry out, right? I mean, sun
Yeah.
works on them, they beat on them all day. Again, my point is, I guess there's probably other industries
Yeah.
that could take advantage of
Oh,
that,
absolutely. Yeah.
right?
And I see a lot of smart contractors of all types, including plumbing and roofing, doing things like this. And I think it helps a lot. Okay. So we talked about pre-calls. We talked about add-ons. We're increasing the customer lifetime value. They're happier with us because they're getting the things they need. What about follow-ups? And how do you do this in a way that feels authentic and natural? And what is the rhythm on follow-ups?
So I think part of the process, is getting a feel if they want you back to constantly, like I said, the maintenance agreement's a great way to keep in contact with the customer. And let's say, okay, so maybe they're not interested in a service agreement. Well, either way, whether they are or they aren't, and you leave the house, I think, again, I'll go back to my electrician that I have really good experience with.
Mhm.
The same guy that told me when he was coming, after they left and did the work, I was asked to do a review, which I don't mind doing because they did great work and they were here and they did everything they said they were going to do. Heck yeah, I'm going to give them a review. I think natural this day and age, I think everybody's a little bit kind of expecting for you to ask for a review.
Yeah.
And hopefully you've done such a good job with your customer experience along the way that you're going to be a little more confident about the reviews you're going to get back. And then I think in that review or in the follow-up, this same, and I got to lean on this guy because they do a really good job. I get a postcard from them in the mail. I actually got a handwritten card saying, thank you for having us out. We hope, we appreciate you doing that. And then intermediately I'll see, 3 months down the road or during the course of the year, I'll actually get little gift cards from them worth value of the services, like, hey, if you need something done, well, here's a $30 card.
That's good.
I think another Ruth King, who I interviewed on my own podcast, she's really good at this, and she calls them ticklers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Post call habits.
Yeah.
What are these ticklers ticklers in your calendar to remind the contractor, hey, yeah, follow up with here, send a postcard out here. It's just, it's all about experience. What do you want your image to be?
Yeah.
How do you want to be perceived? You want people to be raving fans. There's another book for you. How do we create
Yeah, I love
raving
that book.
fans?
Yeah. Our whole team is reading that right now, by the way.
Awesome book. Awesome book.
We're just working with a company that does property enhancements at apartments, like and their whole team is like really, really into raving fans. So I was like, dang, our team. I wish our team was as intense
So,
about that vibe.
so I learned, you know how I found out about that book? We had a garage, a mechanic where I used to work down from my office, and it would be easy because I would take my car, leave my car there while I was working. I could walk to this place. I went in to use the restroom. They had towels, not paper towels. They actually had towels like you were in the Ritz-Carlton in the bathroom. The bathroom you could eat lunch off of, right? I mean, this is immaculate. And this is an automotive place. I got my car delivered to me. There was a flower on the seat next to me with, a thank you card. And I'm like, so the guy I was working with at the time, we walked over there, met with the manager, actually the business owner, said, hey, he shared with us this raving fan book that it's all about customer experience, right? And no matter what your field or background is, you can do something to enhance that.
I love it. It's such a good kind of just another call to action. It's a very short book. It's very good for teams. Honestly, I think a lot of smart contractors, different types of companies are using this to kind of like help get a little bit better customer service culture. So I think that's a really good option for something as far as the next step people could do from this too. Also, I want to give them an opportunity to connect with you if appropriate, because you do training and you talk to a lot of HVAC companies. So can you give the little quick pitch and how they could get a hold of you?
Yeah. So my company is KGG Consulting. You can find us at kggconsulting.com. We're kind of a unique business model in our trade, in our industry, because we're a national manufacturer's rep agency is really what we are. So we combine a bunch of groups together. We work closely with a couple of manufacturers of indoor air quality products. And I'm in my role because I love training and I love teaching. And that's honestly, could you call it selling? Sure. I call it training and education, because we need our sales reps to be experts, and the local experts, no matter where they are in the country. That's our model, right? We want to make our contractors those same experts. So what we've done is we created there's an online learning management system. If you're in the HVAC industry, or maybe you're an electrician that wants to offer indoor air quality accessories, this year has been great because we've been getting calls from, like, I think you and I were talking last week, Tim, there's solar guys that want to come into this industry. We got Elon Musk that wants to get into the heating and air conditioning industry now, which is great. So we're there if you want to just learn more about indoor air quality in general. If you're a homeowner listening right now and really want to know about what's in your air, we have iaq.works. So iaq.works there's great articles on there. It's a great website where you can find out about what it means to clean the air, have better breathing air. We spent so much time with water and how to treat our water and drink the best possible water. We pay loads of money for bottled water, but we hardly ever think about our air. And that's just my world that I live in, is to help everybody breathe the cleanest possible air, because we spend over 90% of our time in our homes, especially this year. It's probably even more than that. And honestly, if we don't think about the immediate surroundings and space and then the air that we're actually breathing in, and that has major effects on our health and our bodies.
I appreciate that very much. I like that you're a bit of an evangelist for it, and it does matter doing stuff you believe in. So I appreciate you chatting with us today. What's the URL one more time here?
So go to kggconsulting.com and you'll find a bunch of tabs on there. The training tab is where you'll find our online learning management system. And then if you just want a little bit more about IAQ, just go to iaq.works.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And man, I would have you on the podcast more times for sure if you're interested.
Anytime, Tim.
So let's keep in touch. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you everyone for listening. It's the Hook Better Leads podcast, hookagency.com, Hook Agency all over social, and join us next week.